I believe the Bible is 100% true and accurate, I was always under the assumption that if any story or location in the Bible would be impossible to locate using modern day archaeology, it would be Sodom and Gomorrah. Those two cities were totally destroyed by fire from heaven way back in the ancient Bronze Age. So honestly, why would anyone bother looking? And any of the claims that I've seen online in discussions on internet or even in maps in the back of my Bible, to me it appeared to be nothing more than the product of wishful thinking. Well, for the millionth time in my life, I was proven wrong. Discovering the City of Sodom by Dr. Stephen Collins and Dr. Latayne Scott takes the reader on a fascinating journey that I now believe ends with the discovery of the biblical city of Sodom. First, let me start by saying that this book is just simply a great read. The book begins by taking the reader on a journey as if we were going on our own archaeological tour of Israel, and then to the discovery of a lifetime, starting with why Dr. Collins began to look for the Sodom in the location where it is now believed to be set, and a conclusion on how Sodom was destroyed that's pairing the physical evidence found at Sodom with the record we find in the Bible, to unearth an archaeological discovery that lines up miraculously with what we find in the Bible. And all of this comes from Dr. Collins' research at El-Hammam. I enjoyed this book from beginning to end. I read it faster than I would have expected to, simply because I was enjoying the journey so much. Discovering the City of Sodom tells us how, using Genesis as his guide, Dr. Stephen Collins investigated the theory that Sodom is not really located right up against the southern edge of the Dead Sea or underneath the Dead Sea, as it has so often been proposed in the past, but Sodom is actually located east of the location we know as Bethel and Ai, since that's what we read in Genesis 13. So the simple act of using Genesis 13 as his guide brought Dr. Collins to dig at Tal El-Hammam. And once they began to dig into the dirt of that tell, the discoveries were astounding. From 20 inches of heavy dark gray ash to the very gates of Sodom where Lot likely once sat. This site divulged more than enough information to overturn skeptics like me who thought, we just can't find Sodom. For me, one of the strongest pieces of evidence presented in the book was that following the destruction of Sodom in the Bronze Age, that location was left unoccupied for 700 years. So when the Bible speaks on multiple occasions about Sodom, it makes sense that Sodom would remain a place of horror and devastation in man's actual vision for generations, as they saw that this once great city remained darkened and uninhabited for so long. I was also fascinated to learn that Sodom was surrounded by as many as 1,500 rock dolmens, which are similar to what we find at Stonehenge. And this would have meant that Sodom was not only a land of sexual perversion, but it was also a center for pagan worship. It's where people in Canaan and regions beyond would have traveled to for their polytheistic worship during the days of Abram. So when Lot went to Sodom, he wasn't just simply going to a well-watered, prosperous city, which, oh, by the way, was massive in size. You could fit 10 Jerusalems inside the walls of Tal El-Hammam, or what I believe to be Sodom. But with the dolmens surrounding that city, the first thing that you would notice about it, looking from afar, was that it was a location for polytheistic paganism for the region. The best part of this book, though, was the conclusion on how Sodom was destroyed. And I don't want to go into any of the details here because it was so fascinating. It was so, kind of mind-blowing what comes up, and I want to leave it as the little carrot to encourage you to go out and get a copy of Dr. Collins' book and read it for yourselves. I think the biggest controversy of this book will come from the dating of Tal El-Hammam and when it was destroyed by fire from heaven. Collins dates the destruction of Sodom to be approximately 1650 to 1750 BC. Now, this date is not going to fit with the traditional conservative dating in the book of Genesis, for those who traditionally put the life of Abraham around the year 2000. For me, though, it's not that big of a problem, to be honest, because I don't hold fast to any specific dates before the lifetime of King David. The Bible doesn't mention any of those dates in its pages, and I don't see any theories we have regarding those dates to be inspired. After reading the calendar controversies in one of the translations of the works of the Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe we can't really hold any confidence in the years of when the Israelites crossed through the Red Sea or the life of Abraham. I think that those dates are all up for debate a little bit as to when they occurred, since they're not included in the scripture. But even if that is a deal breaker for you with the dates, I still encourage you to read this book for yourself. Take the journey. It is enlightening, it is informative, and it is a wonderful trek on how a man, simply following the record in Genesis, made an unbelievable archaeological discovery. And if you want a way to bolster your confidence in the life of that Abraham is a real man who was called to the land of Canaan, who was given that land by promise, who saw the destruction of the city of Sodom. This is a wonderful testament to the reality of what occurred in the Bible so many years ago. So I thank Dr. Collins and Dr. Scott for their wonderful and thorough work in writing Discovering the City of Sodom. If you've enjoyed this review and you are new to the channel, I would love for you to subscribe so that you can stay engaged and on top of the wonderful world of Christian literature. And also, if you're a veteran of this channel and you want to support what we're doing here, go on and be a patron at patreon.com/RevReads.